Here we are, back again.
We're back. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, and we did not try to dress alike.
Great minds.
Ridiculous.
Stripes are always in, though.
Well, yeah, but I haven't worn this in probably 5 years, and I just grabbed it this morning.
Yeah,
and we look like the Olsen twins.
And I like it, though. I don't mind a matching moment.
I like it. I like it. We'll see
Yours
how
is more navy, though, and mine is more black and white.
This is a little nautical, islandy.
You're prepping for Mackinac?
Probably not.
Me neither. Me neither. For the first time in like a decade, I am not going.
Yeah, I may be bopping around there because there's a Netflix documentary that I'm potentially like tangentially involved in a little bit. Actually, we can talk to Chad about that, and there may be some moments of intrigue there related to that. But otherwise, no, I don't have to go.
Really? Your life is getting really interesting. How was your weekend?
I do have an interesting life, Shaquila, and I'm really owning that. My weekend was great. I got home in about 2,300 hours last night, so I'm here.
Home from?
So my good friend Patty Wheeler, and I don't think you and I have deep dived on this, but she is the executive producer of a documentary around Kratom called Side Effects May Include. It's not yet to streamers, but they're about to sign a deal, so everyone will be able to see it soon. She hosted a big premiere down in Florida of the movie. Her son passed at 27 years old. Kratom only death. He had nothing but a Zyrtec in his system other than Kratom. But this was actually great. It was a big fundraiser for the nonprofit that helps spread awareness, et cetera. And then her Hollywood director, guy by the name of Jason Neese, who's done Umbrella Academy, he does Costner's films. He came down for it. So I ended up facilitating a discussion with them after the premiere, and it was great. And of course, she has this amazing home. The entertainment was a man that's won 17 Grammys. Country music scene, not my scene.
Okay.
He wrote the song Chicken Fry. Chicken Fry?
Can't tell you I know
Zach
that
Brown.
one.
He writes all Zach Brown's music.
Okay.
Anyways, it was a colorful
weekend.
It was a colorful weekend. Some at 2 in.the some steak with caviar came out. Like it was just
not where you imagined you spend your weekend.
I hope to do more like that, frankly.
Okay. All right. Well, here's to more of those kind of weekends.
Yeah. How about you?
I had a quiet weekend. I weeded my flower bed.
I knew you were going to say some plant thing.
It's always a plant thing with me. But yeah, weeded my flower bed, put out some mulch, maybe remapped one of my flower beds, like kind of in my mind. And then next couple weeks, I'll actually put it into action. But yeah.
That's got to be very centering.
It is. I figured out that my personality, I need like tangible things, right? Working in the legislature for so long, you rarely get to see the fruits of your labor, right? You rarely get to see, you rarely meet someone that it's like, oh, my life changed because this law passed, if you ever get it passed, right? And so I started gardening and baking a few years ago, and it just, it is very calming. Again, you immediately see the changes that you made and blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
And so, this weekend was plants.
I know nothing about plants, but when I need an answer about how to keep something alive, it's not a child or a dog, which I'm doing pretty well there. I'm going to call you.
Okay.
But speaking of work that's chaotic and
seeing the results
it's like vaporous, we have an amazing guest today.
We do.
Kind of a household name, but someone that's very familiar with this pace of you just like open your eyes and you get bombarded with information, and then you try to sneak away and water plant or eat a taco or something, you go right back into it, and then you have to create those kind of boundaries and spaces, right? And this is a person that it kind of hangs around the margins of what our careers have been like, but has a very unique place in this policy making and governing and thought leadership space. So who do we have, Shaquila?
I agree. Chad
Livingood
is going to join us.
A guy named Chad.
And I like this theme we have. A couple of gems, a girl named Chris.
Yeah.
And now Chad.
We were thinking of hanging with Chad.
Like, yeah.
I know. It's good.
We'll figure it out.
I like it.
All right.
So we'll bring in Chad.
All right. Hi, Chad. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
This is interesting. I feel like the interviewer gets interviewed.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. How often do people try to do this to you, by the way? Like, oh, we're going to get him. In the hot seat.
Increasingly more often. People just want to talk to the person who asked the questions, and probe them for once, and just sort of try to catch them maybe a little bit, or just try to have a more personable conversation, which I'm always down for.
That yes, I could see that. There's some people that would say, like, let's turn this on him, see how he likes it. That's not why we're here. We're here to just get to know, like, the Chad. That's not the Chad Livingood of editor at Detroit News. Now you're the political editor, but you're also doing some sports now. Is that right?
No.
You're dabbling, or you just like the Pistons and post about.
Oh,
them?
I like to. I increasingly in the last several years of my life, the only way to kind of divorce myself from politics is just to absorb some other kind of information.
Yes.
So I have become more of a sports fan. I don't think I would have been wearing a Tigers hat on a podcast. And I was at the Tigers game yesterday, and of course I watched the Pistons, melt down. But so I'm not a sports analyst, but I will play one here on a podcast.
All right,
sports are your plants. Yeah. And my obsession with Burmese pythons in Florida.
I also am a bit of a gardener. Really? I have long been. I originally, as a teenager, mowed a lot of lawns, did a lot of landscaping. The family had a landscaping business.
Okay, so you can keep something
fairly
alive.
Full-scale landscaping business well into my early 20s, and so in a previous life, and I just still quite enjoy it. So. I actually just got done building a hosta bed. In my
is that hard, Shaquila?
I don't have a whole bed of hostas. I was actually I have a triangle on my lawn, and I was like, I need to add more hostas. So maybe you got some extras. You want?
I just split
all
kinds of. My mom has hundreds of hostas they're my parents' house in Chelsea and my parents' lake house. So I just got done splitting everything that was splittable, essentially. Okay. So, but I built this like pretty large bed that was under this pine trees in my house, and I live in Howell, and it was just grass was not growing there, and I'm like, okay, I told my wife, this is going to become a hosta bed. I'm gonna nurture it and make it work.
I feel like hostas are relatively easy to keep alive, and I mean mine come back every year, and so they're in my transition of the tulips are down, the hostas are growing in, and then I have lilies I think that come in July, and so that's kind of
I separately planted a lily bed as well. I had another little spot. It was just kind of perfect and kind of on our corner, and so hopefully in July I'll have.
You guys are starting to sound a little dorky over here.
Yeah,
I know.
Sorry, I got really nerdy here, but these are the things that I do to get away from politics.
Yes,
I very much. I had to find something that was tangible, I think, as I said earlier, but also just to turn my brain off from the constant, the constant cycle of politics. It affects everything, right?
Yes.
And so now I get to think about the schedule. Oh, my peonies are coming up. The tulips need to be cut. Like that's how
it's grounding. It's grounding.
I took up listening to. I'm old, so I say books.
I think we're the same age. So watch.
Audible.
I'm 43, but I use the term books on tape.
I was just going to say that's what makes you sound old.
Yes.
That you said on tape.
Yeah, my daughter likes to call me an elder millennial.
That is what they call us.
I think we all are. I think we're all roughly around the same age.
Elder millennials. I might be the oldest.
But I think growing up in the UP, we're like 5 to 10 years behind. I kind of have some Gen X parts to me.
Well, my siblings are Gen
I'm
X.
splitting wood after school. That washes off a couple of years or adds a few. But all this plant talk, I think you answered one of our questions. And so we'll go backdoor another way into it, which is kind of like, if you weren't doing what you were doing, what would you do? And I got answers like dog daycare and things like that, which maybe I will have dog daycare. But I think if we could rewind a little bit further, my friend has this theory that everyone in 9th grade has a glimmer of knowing what they want to be or do. And it's whether they grab it or whether stuff gets in the way. What did Chad Livingood think in 9th grade that he wanted to do with his adult life?
I wanted to be a sports broadcaster.
Okay. We're in the right hemisphere.
And so, like in 10th grade, there was the ability to start getting involved in. I would film basketball games and hockey games
on
VHS,
like the big.
Yeah.
How big was
camcorder?
it?
Yeah, VHS or not a camcorder, but a full, camera.
So you wanted to be a middle-aged dad?
Kind of, yeah. So here I am. But no, I would. My buddies, my best friends were on the hockey team, and I was just not quite good enough to be on the hockey team. But my buddy's dad, who was the coach, he said, "I'll make you the cameraman." And I was happy to do that because I went to every single game for like 3 years.
That's better than Waterboy.
Home and away. It was quite a fun thing because it was just I was just filming the games, and then I would also give my own color commentary throughout it.
It's a one-man show.
And so then they would watch it during film and listen to Chad's commentary about the game, essentially. And sometimes my buddy Brad would get all mad because like I would make some comment like about the coaching or something, and then he'd be like, "You just ripped up my dad during the tape," and my buddies were just falling apart laughing while they watched tape. To the point that Mr. Wright had to actually mute the thing, so they would no longer hear my
like,
commentary.
"Who does this guy think he is?"
There's one game. I'm from Chelsea, hometown of Jiffy Mix and Jeff Daniels.
Chelsea, Michigan.
Okay. And so Jeff Daniels' son was on the team when I was a senior, and his son Ben was a sophomore. And so sometimes I'd be up in the stands with Daniels, and Daniels' commentary was much more salty and involved a number of cursing words that we can't
we allow
say
those here, by
the
way.
Oh, we do.
No, we
Okay.
do allow those.
Well,
we keep it to a dull roar.
There was plenty of F-bombs from Jeff Daniels, and they would get on the tape.
I was just going to say,
and
you got
the
him on tape?
coaches got really mad about that, but then they couldn't say anything because it was Jeff freaking
Jeff
Daniels.
Exactly.
And he was like we were literally in a hockey rink. That was the land was donated by his dad, Bob Daniels, the longtime owner of Chelsea Lumber, and so it was just sort of like you just can't say.
He gets to say what he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the ultimate dude, right?
Jeff Daniels, he's the ultimate Chelsea dude. So, anyways, it was pretty funny. But Jeff Daniels also gave me a lot of advice about going to Central, of which Jeff Daniels.
I'll try not to say too much.
Yeah. But I got a little, got some fun tips from Jeff, and whatnot. And anyway, so I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I went to Central, and then I found out that you have a better chance of becoming an NFL football player than an anchor on SportsCenter.
But you usually have to do that first.
Right.
There's only like 4 anchors on SportsCenter. Yeah. And there's like 400 or I don't know how many.
By the way, there is still time. There's still time.
There is still time.
Yeah, I highly doubt it, but
you can change careers in your 40s. Look at me.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for my talk show.
Yeah. So
we're there, right?
I went to school to become a sports broadcaster. I took some journalism classes and got kind of hooked on writing, and kind of frankly found television news to be a little shallow. And
I hear that.
And so I really, really kind of fell in love with the printed word and going deep into a subject. And so now I do a lot of multimedia journalism. I do video and I do television and radio and whatnot and formats like this. So I mean, I took all that training. I have a degree in journalism. I just came up really short in getting a minor at Central in broadcasting. I failed a class my final semester. What was Chad? Failure, it was a C-. You had to have a C right there.
Yeah.
And were you doing some horsing around down there at the Wayside?
No, I kind of my Wayside days were done by then. But I was editor of the student newspaper, and so I really cared more about the 40-hour-week job. Yeah. Running the newspaper than going to class. And so I failed this Pete Orlick's capstone class, and I didn't get a minor. Had to rearrange my degree in the final week in order to walk.
Which a minor has anyone ever asked you about?
Well, it's funny because the broadcasting department, some of the professors that are still there, they considered me an alum, and they had me on their podcast a couple of years ago to talk about what I do and everything. And at the end, I was like, I'm not really an alum. And they're like, oh, you're not. I'm like, no, I failed Orlick's class, and I didn't get the minor. And they're like, oh man. But Peter
They
Lick
should
was
do
this
one
really
of those
tough
honorary
professor.
degree things for you.
Yeah,
You know,
Maybe.
Yes,
Me
I
and
think
me and Dick
could be.
Enberg,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
Dr. Livingood. Right?
Yeah.
Jeff Daniels got one of those because he
Exactly.
See?
I think you're on the way.
You'd be in good
he-
Now,
company.
you should get something better than a
bombed out.
minor, though, out of it.
Yeah,
too.
I agree.
Let's get you an
the
honorary
the
graduate.
School of Broadcast shit or
Yeah, some
comms
football
shit.
tickets.
So that's how I got into for newspapers. But if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be a landscaper. I'm from a family of farmers. I was born on a family farm in Missouri.
Really?
Family still farms. My
Wow.
uncle and cousins, and so my brother and I had a nice little landscaping business in our teens and early 20s, and so I'd probably still be doing that if I wasn't. I hadn't gone to college
useful.
and
Well,
figured this out.
You two found
made it this far.
some common ground here today
Yeah.
with your plant side hustles. Yeah. So you mentioned the written word and that you like to explore a subject deeply. I think that's kind of what you're known for, in my opinion, is looking backwards, forwards, and frankly, if you're bringing your own curiosity and analysis to it, which, in my opinion, nobody's very good at almost any job without that. I'd love to know what you think are some of the big stories that you're known for, because I can't help but still recall the Courser Gamrat expose, which was a one of a kind, but it might be a thing where you're like, I don't want to talk about that. That's not really what I really think my moment. I mean, do you know what I mean, Shaquille?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think of when you think about Chad's big pieces?
I think about No Fault, of course, and like your personal connection and the fight with the legislature. And it's one of those issues that it's interesting to read your perspective. It's interesting to talk to the different folks who have been chair of the committee, or you talk to, like, you try to find that slither of agreement. But that's what I think of probably more than anything.
So what are the defining moments of your career as far as the way that you do these deep dives and really wake people up on a topic?
I hope that on my gravestone one day, there's more than just Todd Courser listed. So I've I've done just a variety of things as a journalist that is just utterly fascinating. I mean, I like to say that I've actually covered a hurricane. When I was in Delaware before I came back to Michigan, I was stationed for 3 days on Bethany Beach, Delaware, near the Maryland line, just to cover a hurricane. And so I like to be thrown into things and do different things. One of my favorite things to do as a writer is to write obituaries. Not something that every
You
reporter,
heard that right, audience. He said obituaries.
not something every reporter likes to do. But you know what? There is nothing more personal than calling up family members and talking to them about their loved ones and writing the story about them. I wrote the obit on Travis Weber, the former lawyer for Rick Snyder, who committed suicide
In his 30s?
In his 30s, real young guy. But someone I had become friendly with over the years, but I also knew all the people that loved him in this town.
Yeah.
And I knew how important that story was. I just recently wrote the obit on Jim Metzelfeld, the legendary Detroit news reporter who won the Pulitzer with Eric Friedman for exposing the House Fiscal Agency scandal in the 90s. Also a story that I knew that if you have to tell with humility and you have to tell with lots of grace and be respectful. And I wrote that. It was an honor, really, because here's a guy that I eventually got to be in his shoes. I mean, when I came to Lansing in 2012, I was suddenly saw myself sitting in the same seat as Friedman, Metzelfeld, Charlie Kane, and George Weeks, and so many others from the Detroit News or Detroit newspapers who have been kings in this town. And that was an immense responsibility.
Absolutely.
And so obituaries, I mean, these are things that I remember. I one time wrote about a kid in Delaware who died in Afghanistan. And I get a note from that guy's dad every couple of years around the anniversary.
Wow.
Where he's just thanking me again for writing the story about his son.
Yeah.
And so
that's work with purpose.
Work with purpose, stories that you remember. Now, the auto no fault, I've covered auto no fault in so many different issues related to auto insurance since 2012. And I kind of think I've covered about everything you can think of. I mean, I wrote about the 7-day auto insurance, sort of scam that LA Insurance was doing for many years.
That's a layered topic for sure.
Yeah, there's so. I mean, every time I got a little deeper, I was like, man, there is something else rotten about this whole system. Yes. Rotten for drivers, rotten for the motoring public in general, and then there's all these care companies that became dependent on this system. So there was no doubt there was definitely some level of abuse and fraud in the system, whether it was at the trial lawyers or the medical providers, and then more and more, it's also the insurance companies. And I last year when I wrote about Cure Auto Insurance and all their issues, it was kind of daunting how just like one insurer could have so many complaints, and so little was done by both the regulatory structure and also the industry itself. Like they don't really police themselves, even though it's kind of an open secret in this town. Cure is not part of the Insurance Alliance of Michigan, and it's because they get to vote in their members. Yeah. They don't really want him.
Which I was going to say, this is a scenario where the people who were probably most frustrated with some of your earlier pieces, being kind of those that were being exposed, probably circled around and were sort of happy what you were doing about Cure. I would say some of their competitors that have alleged that they're pretty bad actors.
Yeah, without naming a few names, a couple of the big boys in town did send along the big fellas. They did send along some compliments that they were happy that someone was writing about this sort of rogue insurer that was essentially kind of flew in the market, advertised low rates, and then just doesn't pay claims. Yeah. And I'm still looking into a lot of some of their different tactics that they deploy to essentially get out from underneath claims. So it's kind of started as a story about, car insurance is really expensive. But as you got a little more down into it, I mean, in 2019, I wrote like a pretty big piece at Cranes about how it was out of control. 1 in 3 lawsuits in Oakland County were now car insurance related. I mean, it was the kind of thing that at the time it made sense for the legislature to take action. But then since documenting the action and the effect on the drivers that were badly injured, people in wheelchairs, people who can't speak for themselves, little 6-year-old girl in Brighton that I featured in one series of stories. Then you have to step back and say, okay, there's something not right here. There's something not connecting. We had a safety net in place that was the best in the nation. Yes, we had the highest rates in the nation. But what trade-off are people willing to have?
Right.
And then you have this really fragile health insurance system as it is with home health care, and these companies have become pretty dependent upon the higher paying car insurance customers to subsidize
it was an integral part of the payer mix
subsidize Medicaid and these seniors. And so now we have home health care system that has been very much decimated as a result of it. Companies just went under, people got out of the business, they stopped taking auto clients altogether because the pay based on the way the legislature wrote the bill. And I say wrote the bill. I mean, they got stuck in in a House floor substitute, and on like the Friday before Memorial Day. I mean, we're just coming up here on the anniversary.
I recall it. Yeah. I mean, that's the hard thing about legislation, right? Like you're striving for that 56, that 20 and 1. And
for those who don't know, that means 56 is enough to pass a bill.
Yeah, 56 in the House,
members
20
of the
in the
House of
Senate,
Representatives.
1 signature by a governor. I mean, to me, that's always been the hardest part is you're always, you pull one sentence like, oh, this will get me there, and then you might lose 2 more. Yep. You gain 3 from adding in this part. I mean, we watched it for years. The actual like process is probably one of the most chaotic things that you'll do, right? Like, especially when you can't walk away and say, well, we need more time, because when you're that close, it all topples if you walk away. Yeah. Right. And
that
I think you'll
never get back to that specific momentum.
No. And there are oftentimes unintended consequences, right? Like we can say that about any major piece of legislation, that there are parts that if you had to go back, like, oh, I do this differently, you also probably wouldn't pass something. And maybe doing nothing sometimes is the best option or outcome, but you don't know that until you get it you get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I find to be the most important work as a political reporter is to write about what happened. What happened when they passed this law? How did this affect people? How did this play out? Did it play out as advertised?
Yes.
Sure.
Very often things do not play out as advertised. And I'll give one example. When I was at Cranes, I went to a meeting, and this is just kind of an example of, and I've been stressing this with my team at the Detroit News, you got to leave the Beltway. You got to get out of Lansing.
Yeah.
You got to go find out how things are working for people. And I was at this story got discovered in the most unusual place. I was at the Detroit Athletic Club in a suite for lunch with Dave Meter, then the vice chairman of DTE Energy, and Cindy Paskey, then or the CEO, longtime CEO of Strategic Staffing Solutions in Detroit, 2 big business titans who were co-chairing Mayor Duggan's economic development board at the time. And they were talking about various issues that were holding back Detroiters from getting jobs. And Meter, who was a pretty mild-mannered individual, he just gets like red-faced and upset about driver responsibility fees. And at the table was Jeff Donofrio, then the executive director for economic development, or he was running the board, workforce development. And so I turned to Donofrio and I was like, I'm sorry, I thought I saw the legislature repeal this. I could have sworn this is 2017, I think. And I'm like, I saw them repeal this in 2012. And he's like, oh yeah, they did, but there's a 5-year sunset. And then they were talking about how there was $78 million of debt owed by Detroiters, and it was some like I'm now forgetting the number, but 25,000. They were all owing like $2,000 to $3,000 in debt, and I was like, wow.
And losing their driver's license
and
the ability to get to work.
Couldn't get it back.
It might have been years old.
There were these 30,000 Detroiters who were adults who were just stranded from the economy, forced to get to work on a broken bus system or any other means essentially, or just unable to get to work. And so. I was like, well, if it's $78 million to Detroit, what is it for the rest of the state? And they're like, well, we don't know. And so I was at this meeting with Ron Fournier, then the publisher of Cranes, and we went to the elevator, and I said, I can work with this. This is interesting. I'm going to go look into this. And I emailed Treasury. I said, I want every zip code in Michigan. And they came back and they sent me this spreadsheet, and it was $630 million at 300,000 people. So over $2,000 a pop, statewide, 300,000 people.
And likely in the poorest counties is concentrated. I mean, whether it's in the UP or...
It was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was amazing how many people were owing these fees, and this was a Granholm era law that it was passed when Ken Sikkema was still majority leader, and they were in a budget crunch, and they basically put a tax on regular driving fees. And
was it a money grab for roads?
It was not for roads. It was a budget. It was a budget fix. And the first year brought in $100 million. Jeez. But that was done along with the permanent plates for trailers. That also brought in a ton of money, but now brings in no money because you just buy the plate once. But yeah, it was all around the budget crisis.
Gimmick.
And so none of that money goes to roads. The driver's responsibility fees, it's all GF, I think.
Yeah. I was just having a conversation with my dad about the permanent plate, because it used to be you had to update a plate for like a camping trailer, a small utility trailer. And my dad has he has a fireplace business. And through that, and just also personal use, we've got to have like 10 different trailers.
Yeah.
and between two houses. And they've been on permanent plates. And I literally was just talking to my dad about it when we were putting the boat in the other day.
During one of the many iterations of road funding that I've done, we had a discussion about repealing the permanent plates and building out like a 5-year. Because at this point, I think it went into effect in 2006 or 2007. So at this point, you've gotten your money's worth, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was such an unpopular, even amongst the legislators to talk about. That was one of during the Snyder mix of fixes, if you remember those conversations. Repealing the permanent plate, doing something about dealer plates, because a lot of dealers will just get plates for their family, so they never pay registration fees. There was just a bunch of ideas. Yeah. You wanted to do something for overweight trucks in other states. If you're over I think it's 68,000 pounds or something. Yep. In Michigan, you get to do more than 68,000. You get to do like 120,000 pounds or something, but it's distributed different, blah, blah, blah. In
more
other
axles,
states, yes, distributed by more axles. In other states, there's a formula for your overweight truck permit, and it's divided by the amount of miles you're going, the number of axles, blah, 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 so that it's a sliding scale. In Michigan, it's a flat fee. And so again, that was part of the conversation. Yeah. You're taking me back, Chad.
Well,
these are all the things
I understand, like net present value, and I understand like we're screwed on this budget this year, but those things are such rarely good ideas. It's like, we'll figure this out now, and then later we'll get to it.
The term limits, no one remembered, right? Like you could not find a legislator that knows anything about any of these issues that I just named, because they stopped talking about them after that term. After like 2 or 3 cycles of legislators termed out, there's no base of knowledge. Yeah. There's no staff that remembers that kind of stuff anymore, except some of the fiscal folks.
And with the driver responsibility fees, I had gone back and looked at the bill in 2012 to understand the sunset. And it was sponsored by Joe Haveman. And so I called Joe up, and by then he is long gone from the legislature.
And he was in the House of Representatives,
House of
Michigan,
Representatives, yes, from West Michigan. And I called and told him about this, and he got really upset on the phone.
He does.
Because they literally was some cursing, and he's like, I told Bolger this would happen. And so what the backstory was that in 2012, they were going to repeal these things because they were just so hated, these driver responsibility fees, because they would be fees on top of your speeding ticket or your moving violation or even parking tickets. Yep. And it was like basically a state tax, and then there would be fees if you didn't pay it. So people
it's like the payday lending store
of thousands of dollars.
People would go to prison, come back, and they would have thousands. Absurd. Sometimes I talked to one man in Kent County, he had $10,000. And
by the way, what did he do? He probably had a speeding ticket, some parking tickets, right? Like,
what are we doing? He was literally in prison for like 7 years. Came back and he had $10,000. It would balloon to $10,000. I mean, it's an instant tax on the poor, instant tax on people returning citizens. People cannot already have a hard time getting a foothold in the economy, and so Joe was like really upset about this. And he's like, you got to call this one Kent County judge. And I forgot the guy's name, but I called this Kent County judge, and he was just furious too. So then I started talking to like Goodwill and industries and other entities that help people try to get these things forgiven if they can. But there's some of these charities had little funds that would pay off your $2,000 just to get you back in the workforce. But is hit and miss. So I wrote about this being this really big problem in the workforce. And I got a call a week or so later from Tom Leonard, then the Speaker of the House. And he was visibly upset about this. And he was like, when I was in Genesee County, as an assistant prosecutor, these things would come up and they were just terrible. And I actually thought we got rid of them. Yeah. And the problem is that they weren't even done being sunset. At that point, they were collecting like 36 million. It was nearly the big sum of 100 million. And basically everybody was concluding. Literally by the time I wrote this, everybody was coming out of the woodwork about this. I got a call from Ruth Johnson called one day. I also think we should get rid of these, Chad. And, it's like everybody was really, like suddenly everyone wanted to get rid of them except for Arlen Meekhoff. And Rick Snyder, sort of the bean counter governor, was like, well, what are we going to do about that 30 million? And,
I want to hear more of your impressions of him.
That's my one Rick Snyder impression. So Meekhoff was kind of like at that time, Meekhoff and Leonard were not getting along well.
This is the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader.
Yeah, and but then the Speaker was just like, we're going to do this. We're going to push this through. And he said, we're gonna repeal the whole thing. And I said, and forgive all the money. I'm like, what do you mean forgive it all? He's like, we're just gonna wipe it away. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, okay. I did not expect that.
Yeah. And you've got to feel like, wow, I helped light a spark for something that
got people motivated.
Yes.
And they started realizing, this is really a bad thing. It's kind of gotten worse, and we should have rectified it in 2012. I mean, and Joe Hoffman was like, I told Bolger this would happen, and so it was Jace Bolger, then the Speaker of the House, and so because we can have a conversation about anything around here and talk about 7 different speakers.
Yeah,
for sure.
Again, in the era of term limits, right? Like nobody was Speaker for Jace was Speaker for 2 terms, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
but he was the rare person in the age of term limits that served more than
this
one.
was 5 years removed from the last time the legislature took it up, and there wasn't hardly anybody left. And definitely was not anybody from like 2006 or 5 or whenever they first. No, it was actually, I think it dated back to 2003. I mean, it was like the first year of Granholm and Ken Sikkema over in the Senate.
So can I pivot for a minute along that line, only because you're a busy man and we don't get to talk to you all day, unfortunately. Your comment about the importance of you got to get out and talk to people and see how these things are real in people's lives. The legislature, I mean, to be fair to them, their job is to pass a thing and come back tomorrow and pass another one and keep going. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't be concerned with unintended consequences, but your devotion to that is a really meaningful part of how you understand what's good for society and what's not working. You did something that was really special to me in the last few months here. People are like, here goes Lindsay, kratom this, kratom that. But I'm not going to apologize, frankly, because how many times in your life, especially when you touch public policy, do you get to work on something that you know is saving people's lives? Not today, not yesterday, like right now and in 20 years. So I'll go on about it for a minute. But you spent a lot of time with my family, Chad, and brought really good light. I mean, your article is still everywhere and sparking other people's interest. But on a topic that people are like, huh, what is that? And the 30-second overview is it's a morphine-like drug that sits on the counter of gas stations that essentially over a 10-year, 20-year process kind of found the right type of loopholes regulatory-wise to be something that you could go pick up after you left here, and you could become addicted to it. You will become addicted to it, and you might die. But if you could just talk for a minute about what that was like, because you're a guy who knows public policy pretty well. There's probably not a whole lot of topics that you're like, what is this? I don't know about this. Was that a rewarding thing for you to do? Was that an interesting thing for you to do? I mean, there's kind of like a cartel nature behind this thing. And I'd love to know just your side of that experience. We haven't unpacked it at all.
Yeah, so when I started looking at this, when this bill passed, suddenly it went from there was a proposal to just ban 7-OH, the synthetic version of kratom that is kind of described as the hard liquor. If kratom is beer, 7-OH is the Everclear, essentially of kratom. And so I had seen the stories around the country about people like taking this and having like overdose or just sudden deaths, and this sort of isolated, but enough that is not it's something to sort of take note of. And frankly, as a father of a teenager who walks along a busy street from school where there are several gas stations and whatnot, I went and checked them all out and see if they had any kratom, and they do not. But there are energy drinks, and my daughter has a real problem with energy drinks in general. So I wouldn't mind regulating those things, at least for in public schools. But nonetheless, so when I started seeing that, and then when you reached out and said, I've got a personal story here, I took interest in understanding more about how it affected someone that I knew, and also someone a lot of people in Lansing knew. And I thought your sister's story was compelling and worth getting some larger audience to, and for people to sort of understand just how this can affect someone and really tear their life apart, and sort of unknowingly.
Accidentally addicted to heroin, basically.
Yeah,
you find yourself.
And also just in general, like there's so many products out there that are sort of marketed as good for you, healthy for you. And I'm more and more conscious of this as a middle-aged man now, but who has a heart condition, who has been trying to. I have a lot of people know this. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I had a mild heart attack and had to get a stent. In July of 2018, I had to kind of take myself out of covering the governor's race.
I feel like you might have had a heart attack.
No, I mean, I knew about it because we were social media friends. I had to unfriend everybody with this last job, but I did know that. And I mean, I have family that have had heart issues as well. So I
didn't mean to interrupt, Chad.
Sorry.
I was just thinking high stress. I'm
I'm kind of like on I'm on I would say a 70% vegetarian diet now. I can't quite break all the meat, and neither can my wife, but she's very supportive, and so I looking at like all these different substances that are out there available for people. And just some of the crazy stuff that seemed to be put into energy drinks as well. Yeah. And my daughter had like a little heart issue one day after drinking an energy drink, and I had to take her to the ER. Yeah. And so some of this has got me just kind of more conscious of these things. And then so to see this substance that is totally unregulated, totally not policed by the FDA to date, and much less state level as well, caught my interest. And then the fact that all of a sudden there's legislation for a total ban moving, I decided it needed like a bigger story about the issue and whatnot. And so I dove into it. And so these are the things that I sometimes do when I see a story that feels like it needs to get more elevated a little more.
Mm-hmm. No, and you did a great job, and you were so careful with. I mean, the reality is, being addicted to something no one has heard of is really hard. It's really isolating. People don't believe you. Yeah. I hear my sister's sort of just hiding for years because either she was in the throes of addiction or recovering, and people don't get it, and they judge. And that's always a thing with addiction. But this is a special case of like, what are you talking about? She does what?
It feels made up almost.
But it does. It feels like, or you're weak. She's like, I felt weak. Like what's wrong with me?
Well, and your sister was incredibly brave to go forward and tell that story. A lot of people say that to me, and it gets reinforced by the trolls and the online comments. I'm sure
we told her don't look.
There was
don't
plenty
look.
of things. Yeah, I mean, I have learned a long time ago. People ask, how do you put up all the comments?
Yeah.
And I simply don't read them.
You don't read
Yes.
them. You gotta stop reading them.
I didn't read
Because
them.
actually, I'll give you a quick story. So after my heart attack, I had to do cardio rehab in the summer of 2018. I had this heart attack in May of 2018. And I was doing cardio rehab where they hook up little electrodes that monitor your heart. You have a little device, and I was at this. You're at a little gym basically, and I was on this like seated bike, and I had just written the piece about Abdul El-Sayed not really being a physician, and. Abdul's 2018 campaign for governor was very much backed by what was known online as the Bernie Bros. And the Bernie Bros came after me with knives after that piece because they said, well, he went to Columbia. He does have a medical degree. He also went to Oxford and he has a PhD, and he certainly is Dr. El-Sayed. And I was not doubting or disputing that he was Dr. El-Sayed by any means. But I was pointing out, like in the medical community, some people were pretty ticked that he was calling himself a physician, which implies that he actually is administering medical care to people. And this has most recently been.
I was going to say it's back in the news. Exact same.
Politico did this same exact article on the national level now that El-Sayed is running for Senate, and they literally just kind of like took parts of my story from 2018. So, anyways, I wrote this story. It came out on a Sunday. I think I'm at cardio rehab on Tuesday, and I'm still getting lots of hate mail and messages, and the clinic guy, the therapist guy, he was like, Chad, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, just reading some tweets, and he's like, your heart rate is really elevated right now, and I'm like,
so
he's
real
like,
time.
What are you doing? And I'm
you
like,
watched it in real time.
I'm reading some things that are not so nice about me. And he's like, can I take your phone away for you for the next half hour? And I'm like, sure.
What a Pavlovian lesson of don't do this.
Yes.
Because we watched it. We're at time. Will you give us each a 60-second lightning round question?
I can go a few more minutes. I got time.
Well, I want to know. We didn't end the story on driver responsibility fees. Did you get them repealed?
We did. Yes, they got repealed.
Them completely repealed. That's awesome.
And people got their licenses back. Yeah. There was a whole process. Within like a couple months, there was tens of thousands of new licenses issued, according to the Secretary of State's office. Awesome. It was quite phenomenal to sort of watch. And then I heard from people. And I was the political reporter at the Business Magazine in Detroit, but I heard from like this one guy in Grand Rapids who had read the story, and he reached out and called up, and he was practically in tears because he said he had like $11,000 of debt. Yeah. And it all got forgiven, and he got a license back, and people that hadn't had licenses, and then
we have to grab onto those.
People, and Dave Meter said, look, he heard from the hospitals that this was all. The hospitals had like an entry-level job, mostly Henry Ford Hospital and DMC. Mm-hmm. They needed people who are like kind of greeters and also like people that push you around in wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. But those people had to do two things. They had to have a high school diploma, and they also had to usually have a driver's license sometimes. But the diploma was another thing I wrote about at the time. The people could not get their diploma from DPS because it was stuck in this gigantic warehouse off East Warren Avenue. And so at the time, Dan Gilbert's company was trying to how can we help fix some of these structural issues? And they identified that they needed to digitize like 100,000 diplomas or high school records for like several decades of DPS graduates. So they just sent employees over on a volunteer basis, went over and digitized all these things, pulled them out of I mean, there were high schools that have been long since closed and such. And so
mine is one of them.
The gigantic warehouse, they had to, and it took a couple of years. I wrote about that at Cranes too. And they said that it was so helpful for the hospitals then be able to process these applications, and other companies in town that had entry level jobs, where just having the proof that you finished high school was absolutely necessary. But this is the kind of stuff that you just don't really see in a committee level in the Anderson House Office building. You just got to go do this kind of stuff on the ground and sort of see it as a journalist, also as a legislator. I mean, legislators are also problem solvers too. I mean, your former boss, Joe Tate, I'm sure he's been in these situations where he just has to basically go meet with the constituent and understand, go to the neighborhood and get a bird's eye view of it. And my favorite story about this, speaking of the bird's eye view, I don't remember what year was this, might have been 2014. Bert Johnson is a state senator from Highland Park, and Tom Casperson is a state senator from Escanaba.
Oh.
And this was to try to get a regional RTA legislation moving. Maybe it was 2012. I can't remember. It was
12 because I worked. That was another issue I worked on.
Yeah, so I was at the Detroit Chamber working on that too.
And Bert said, "You know what, Senator, you come to my district and ride buses and see what life is like." And Tom Casperson, the logger, comes down to Highland Park in Detroit and rides buses with Bert Johnson for a day, comes back to the state senate and says, nobody should have to live like this.
No,
kids should not have to wait around
and run across 6 lanes of traffic on 8 Mile, right? You gotta, that connection from the smart bus coming out of Macomb County to get on a Detroit bus, you literally would have to cross 8 Mile, which is 6 lanes of traffic, 3 going each way.
Yeah.
And you are running to catch the bus. And Tom Casperson, who was the chair of transportation at the time, I mean, he was deeply impacted by that. I
mean, people's babies having to go across 8 lanes of 8 Mile.
Yeah.
I mean, so that is the kind of stuff that I really appreciate and kind of look for. And sometimes I also tell when legislators ask me, I've been around here long enough that freshman legislators now ask me for advice on what they should be doing, and I'm like, you need to branch outside of your own little world.
Yes.
Because you're not going to see the big picture unless you do, and that was a pretty special moment when Casperson kind of had and I believe Bert went to Escanaba and did something with him and kind of got a new view of the world. Probably went to the UP State Fair or something.
Or the dog, probably the dog sled race. Oh well, no, I guess that's Marquette. Yeah.
Well, everyone has to go to the dog sled race. But
I'll tell you
done yet.
that experience is one of the things that I referenced later in my career around to show you how you get things done. Again, a compromise. People have asked the governance structure of the RTA is really weird. But again, 56, 20, and 1. But also fast forward to a need that Escanaba had when Joe Tate was first speaker and we got our first bill passed. It was the relationships that I developed working on that RTA issue with Marty Fatanti and other folks that helped us be able to move that first bill. I think it was the first time since the 1940s that a bill passed in January. That
and Marty's another Youper.
Yeah, Marty is another Youper. But we talked about, we went up to the UP after the bill was signed.
There's the paper mill?
It was the paper mill thing. That the project changed and a lot of other things happened, but you don't know that up front. But Marty talked about how the relationship that we built because of the RTA thing later became a basis for helping the UP. Yeah. And here you have a speaker from Detroit. Yeah.
Who's your ally?
Who is your ally? And so I mean, I guess you're right. You got to get outside of your circle. I hope you tell legislators that they should learn to compromise because that is the hardest issue I have with legislators.
Well, and legislators, I mean, they need to interact with the other side of the aisle more. I mean, get more there's just a lack of personal relationships in the building. I think it's gotten a little better in the last couple of years with the extended term limits and that some people, You're not so sure.
I mean, I don't talk to anybody anymore.
But the ability for people to at least get a little more runway and knowledge base of an issue, and I mean
there's potential for it.
There's potential for it, and that can only be good for the long-term governance of the state. That someone at least walks into the room and knows what the heck happened like 18 to 24 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we live with these consequences of driver responsibility fees, of permanent plates, and all of the different deals that were done in previous generations of legislators. And the rest of us have to, or those who are here still have to basically navigate this. Whether you're the new bunch of lawmakers, the veteran lobbyists or staffers, and the veteran journalists who are sitting there trying to say,
that's not exactly how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but because I mean, we've seen it. Like the staffers got pretty powerful in this town in the last several years and or last maybe decade or so, and so I mean.
Kudos.
There's lots of kudos to everybody who got some power around here. But nonetheless, there has got to be in my mind there has to be a balance, and this is an ecosystem that needs some perspective. And also, like, there's not. I mean, my job as a journalist is kind of providing oversight. But I think lawmakers need to provide more oversight. And I have to give props to the Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, because his under his leadership, they have done more oversight. Now the Democrats will say this has become really more partisan, but at least someone's asking questions.
Right. So the quality control is elevated as a thing we should be doing.
I was kind of blown away during Flint how little oversight there was, and how little
Flint water crisis.
Yeah, Flint water crisis. I mean, only Jim Anick was like in one hearing asking tough questions, and so I mean, having some independence. The more independent that a legislator is, I think is healthy for the process, because you don't have a bunch of people just rubber stamping something for the executive or for the speaker. I mean, having a little or majority leader. I mean, having a few
it's disbursement. Disbursement of the expertise.
Yes,
is helpful.
Yeah. And journalists, we enjoy the rabble rousers because they're the ones that can mix
stories,
it up.
Right? Yeah.
They keep some people on their toes. They keep their leadership on their toes, and ultimately it is good for the process and good for the people that someone is asking tough questions, and not just the journalist, but the people that actually have the ability to press the green button.
Agree. We've both been staffers in different capacity, and we would be not doing our job if we didn't say we got to get you out of here, or else you're going to miss your QP olive burger, which is going to be part of your 30% meat allotment this week, I'm assuming. But
it's possible, yes.
If you give us one lightning round, 60-second answer each, I want to know, Chad, do reporters want to be liked?
We want to be respected. I mean, I know that I have made my share of enemies in this town, and I don't really care so much. I am more interested in telling the truth and what happened, but I want to be respected for that. I have a job to do, and you have a job to do, and we can all kind of live together here and in some semblance of harmony.
Good. I bet he.
And my question, I'm going to take a light question. What are you watching right now?
What am I watching?
Yeah,
right
I want to
now?
know.
Well, I've been watching the Pistons, so I kind of
non-live content.
I'm just not. I'm in between shows right now, so that's a tough one.
Out.
I do want to watch this new Dutton Ranch show. I'm just a big fan of Rip and Beth from Yellowstone. So although I started watching the other spinoff show. the Marshalls with the younger Dutton son, and my wife and I decided that was just a little too cheesy, CBS-y for us. But that is on my to-do list. But
so no guilty pleasures.
I'm coaching I'm coaching my son's little league baseball team 2 nights a week, and it's kind of consuming me. So, and we got Mac and on next week, and so I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of in between binges and shows right now.
I think Jen Mananet gave us the same answer.
Yeah,
baseball.
Yeah.
That's
Him
what
and
he's
his
doing.
wife are coaching Jake's little league team right now. So, so it's that season, right? It's summer in Michigan. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I know you took time out of your day. You're in Lansing with us. So appreciate it. This is great.
It's good to
really
get
happy
to know
that you said yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks
and
for
we
having
will
me.
let you go on your way, but hopefully see you next week. If not, another time.
I'll be on the island. Yes.
Yeah. You and Lindsay will be on the island. I
Maybe.
will not be.
Wait, I'm up in the air.
Maybe.
But,
okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Chad.
Thank you.
All right. Let me get a selfie of us before we stand up.
Make it look easy. Too easy.